Yeah, a long time ago.
Well,
Peppy was
please
Peppy.
visit the next time you're passing through.
Let's see. We want his picture in the Taran, or we want his Holiness? No, this is better. You want the stupa on, or do you want the? Hi, we'll go on in about a minute and a half.
Yeah,
Darren, you want the stupa, or you want the other?
It's up to you, Tony.
Well, I'll stay like this now.
we're on the campus. I can see the campus from out the window.
I'm adjusting lights, guys. We'll be on shortly. About 2 minutes or so, but
Sounds good, looks good, Tony.
okay. We'll go on in 45 seconds. Okay. Getting oriented here, so I'm not oxygen prone. Never mind.
Have you had a long day?
Yeah, running around. Good evening. It's 7 o'clock here in the northeast of the United States, and this is Kunchap Tarduling, also known as the Tibet Center, a Buddhist meditation study and center located in New York City and northern New Jersey. And this is our twice weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma, currently mainly the Lamrim Chemo of TSONG. Any problems with the picture or the sound, please let me or Darren Smith know by text. All the prayers we say are on the website in the FAQ section. Scroll down to prayers. If there's anyone who has passed away recently who wish us to pray for when we do the Sutra of the Three Jewels, put their names in the chat box as soon as possible. Don't wait till the end. So we'll start. Prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living here, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon, and especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness. May they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen, just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi, which examines the dharmas, called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus, all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering, should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gate Para Sam Gate Bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the bodhisattva mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound, transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. Refuge and bodhisattva vow, which, as you know, we say 3 times. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So we have a nice varied program for you tonight. Songs and dance and big production numbers? No. However, with regards to your mind, it is a big production. So we'll start with some poetry, most of it from the Nyingma school. And then we'll dwell on the harmony of dependent arising, emptiness and dependent arising, a commentary on the Tendril Tupa, they call it, or the In Praise of Dependent Origination, Dependent Arising, by J. Sankapa. As His Holiness has recommended, we recite that and study it as a cause for the swift return of Rauta Chungla Rinpoche. So we'll be using this book, this anthology, which is a nice piece of work, On the Path to Enlightenment, put together by Mathieu Ricard. There it is. I'm a book salesman here. I don't know. Anyway, a couple of Trigung Dunjab Chogyal has a couple of 4-line poems with some advice. This is from page 190, both of them. Teachings, this is Trigung Dunjab Chogyal. I don't know his dates. I could look them up, but we won't waste time on that. Teachings to which one does not apply oneself become as meaningless as an echo. So integrate them into your mind. That's my advice from the heart. Boom. A quick dart to the heart. Pagmo Drupa Dorje Jalpo. I think he's a Kargyu. Drugpa's Kargyu. Some Drupa, no. Who knows? Doesn't matter, does it? All those things blend. This is good advice, in 5 lines, but very deep. If you apply yourself continually to the practice, appearances will become your teacher, and you will die having realized that the entire phenomenal world is supreme bliss. I'll read it one more time because it's a good message. If you apply yourself continually to the practice, appearances will become your teacher, and you will die having realized that the entire phenomenal world is supreme bliss. Of course, because your mind's in a state of bliss and everything that appears, and that's what it truly is, we're told. It's not something that they're forcing themselves to believe. So, here's some advice from the Hermit Shabkar, his Enigma. This is from page 171. All the phenomena of samsara and nirvana, what appears and what exists, are no more than rainbows in an empty sky, which appear through a conjunction of causes and conditions. No matter how they may appear, they are nothing in themselves. They arise as embellishing ornaments from the sky-like nature of mind. Wondrous. Sky-like nature of mind holds everything in the sky. Mind, it has no color, it has no shape. Look for it. It cannot be found at all. Emptiness. Asterisk, exclamation point. Leave mind just as it is. Vivid clarity. Immaculate, empty, like the infinite sky. Let mind remain in that very state, and let it be raw, brilliant, awake, never obscured, utterly transparent. Leave mind at ease, open, without aim. When mind merges with that state, which like space is all-encompassing, all phenomena are understood with utter clarity, and all the enlightened qualities of the various paths and stages arise. Boundless compassion is born towards beings who lack such realization. Through such training in emptiness and compassion, benefit for others, other beings naturally occurs. Benefit for other beings naturally occurs. From that one. May void, primordial wakefulness, immaculate as the sky, actually arise, vivid, free of obscuration, in the mind stream of those who hear this song. Like a Mahamudra Dzogchen approach. But what he's talking about is the Zen people call show me your face before your parents were born. Your true, deep nature of your mind, which is clear, pure, etc. The unborn, etc., and so forth. But these are just things that we work for. These are very realized beings. So, one more thing I think, this is a little too long. Yeah, from Dilgo Chensei Rinpoche. He's a recent, passed away in 91. He was going to speak at our conference, but he was replaced. It's a great Lama. So this is from page 173. To take the uncreated stronghold of the nature of mind, uncreated stronghold of the nature of mind, you have to go to the source and recognize the very origin of your thoughts. Otherwise, one thought will give rise to a second, then a third, and so on. In no time, you'll be assailed by memories of the past and anticipation of the future, and the pure awareness of the present moment will be completely obscured. Practical advice. Very important. If you recognize the emptiness of your thoughts instead of solidifying them, the arising and subsiding of each thought will clarify and strengthen your realization of emptiness. It is our own mind that leads us astray into the cycle of existence, samsara. Blind to the mind's true nature, we fixate on our thoughts, which in truth are simply the manifestations of that nature. As waves come out of the ocean, it's still water. Our thoughts come out of the mind, but they're not the root of the mind. But through fixation, pure awareness is frozen in solid concepts such as self and others, desirable and repulsive, and many more. This is how we create samsara. Lakes and rivers can freeze in winter, and the water can become so solid that people, animals, and carts travel back and forth on its surface. At the approach of spring, the earth warms up, and the waters thaw. What remains then of all that solid ice? Water is soft and fluid, ice, hard and sharp. We cannot say that they are identical, but neither are they different. Ice is only frozen water. Think about this, talking your mind and your thoughts. And water is only melted ice. It is the same with our perceptions of the external world. To be attached to the reality of phenomena, tormented by attraction and repulsion, and obsessed by the 8 worldly preoccupations is what causes the mind to freeze. Melt the ice of your concepts so that fluid water of free perception can flow. Everything we experience, all the phenomena of samsara and nirvana, appears with the vivid clarity of a rainbow, and yet, like a rainbow, is devoid of any tangible reality. Once you recognize the nature of phenomena, manifest and at the same time empty, your mind will be freed from the tyranny of delusion. To recognize the ultimate nature of mind is to realize the state of Buddhahood, and to fail to recognize it is to sink into ignorance. In either case, it is your mind and your mind alone that liberates or binds you. Your mind and your mind alone that liberates or binds you. If you allow your thoughts and feelings to rise and dissolve by themselves, they will pass through your mind in the same way that a bird flies through the sky without leaving any trace. This applies not only to attachment and anger, but also to the experiences of meditation, bliss, clarity, and absence of thought. Those experiences result from perseverance and practice and are the expression of the inherent creativity of the mind. They appear like a rainbow formed as the rays of the sun strike a curtain of rain, right? Rays of the sun, little rain or heavy fog, and you get a rainbow. And to become attached to them is as futile as it would be to run after a rainbow in the hopes of wearing it as a coat. Simply allow your thoughts and experiences to come and go without ever grasping at them. Not that easy to do, but doable and necessary and free of charge. Maintain that state of simplicity, his last paragraph. Maintain that state of simplicity. Should you encounter happiness, success, and other favorable conditions, take them like a dream or an illusion. Do not get attached to them. And should you be struck by illness, calumny, or other trials, physical or mental, do not let yourself be discouraged. Rekindle your compassion by wishing that through your own suffering, the sufferings of all beings might be exhausted. Tonglen. Whatever the circumstances, do not get either elated or depressed, but remain free and at ease in imperturbable serenity. Imperturbable serenity. May that happen to you on the subway in New York in rush hour. Now, some heavy work. We return to Losang Gyatso's commentary on the In Praise of Emptiness and Dependent Arising. And this is a section of this old text. Well, old because it's printed in the 90s. And we'll start on page 96. This section, the books are broken into big sections, called In Daily Life. In other words, it's taking certain verses and commenting on them with an attitude of how we walk around with this knowledge in our mind. Very practical. It's very useful. He starts off with a little, others see the reasoning of dependent arising as unproven or contradictory with that which it is designed to prove, namely that all phenomena are empty of inherent existence. So different schools say, no, you have to have inherent existence, except for the consequentialist school. You've heard this before. You'll hear it again. Tsongkhapa relied on the interpretations of the consequentialist school and realized that emptiness and dependent arising are supremely harmonious. So you have to look at these ideas and not at the knee-jerk, as different and contradictory, but as complementary. You have to, hard to understand that. You could say, yeah, they're complementary, but you have to understand how they are complementary. He's going to give us some hints. With this realization, all his perplexities concerning the ultimate import of Buddha's teachings were dissolved. Perceiving that emptiness of inherent existence and dependent arising are completely compatible is the incomparable insight of those who actualize the Buddha's highest teachings, and is the deepest wellspring of their faith. Now, some practical tools. We can deepen and extend our appreciation of the various facets of dependent arising by considering it under three headings: depending, relying, and meeting or connecting. Three headings. He'll explain these. Because what does dependent arising mean, and what does this mean, and how do we pick it out? How do we handle it in our minds? This is how. Even if we feel we are a long way from achieving Tsongkhapa's level of illumination and insight, contemplating these different aspects of dependent arising is a sure way to develop our good qualities of generosity, tolerance, and concern for others. You will see now how emptiness and compassion intertwine. How the greatest compassionate minds are minds that understand emptiness thoroughly. So they're not two things that you develop, and at the end, maybe we'll do Tantra and combine them in one. They complement each other, but he'll explain how. The first of the three aspects, depending, embraces at the simplest level of dependent arising, that of effects being the product of causes. Yeah, I know that. Okay, let me talk. Considering how effects are dependent on causes is in itself a great antidote to self-centered and self-satisfied attitudes which lead to our being insensitive to the predicament of others and dismissive of the complexity of their problems. When you see cause and effect, you're not as dismissive of everybody's suffering. Oh, they came about with, oh, these things could be relieved, you think. Because you're now very locked into the idea of everything happening under the system of causation. It naturally leads you to see that self-centered me is a false view, and you're more sensitive to others' problems. That's what he's saying. That's very important. It's a big relief to carry around this false idea of the self. It's a rock you don't have to carry. When we are doing fine, we don't notice how the kindness of many other beings has contributed to our happiness. When we are down, we lunge for the simplest explanation, which places all the blame on others. Not my fault. Is that true or false? Only you know the answer. I think he's right. For instance, we probably all have the tendency to think that whatever good health we have, to a large extent, comes about through our own vigilance, and whatever experiences we enjoy are the deserved fruits of our own hard work. It's all here. I did it. Well, you did. Our analysis of how the good conditions we enjoy arise often tends to go no further than some such thoughts as, I know how to take care of myself, or I put in a lot of effort to be able to afford this, whatever it is. If we go to a restaurant and have a delicious meal, superficially, we may think that being able to do this just depends on our own means, having earned money enough to pay for it, etc. It's going to go through all the intricacies that this is the meditation a lot of meditators do, even when they look at a bowl of cereal or something. How did it get here? Who brought it? And all this, to reinforce the idea of connectivity. And you have to constantly reinforce these things, because the habit of the self-centered I that creates the world and is most important is it with us for billions of years. We got to get off of that habit, get off that train. It's going nowhere. However, we investigate what is, we can, you think of the thing, if we're eating rice, for instance, you can think of all the work of the farmers plowing, planting, weeding, irrigating, finally harvesting the crops. Of course, all the labor of themselves and their draft animals would be in vain if the elements didn't cooperate. Another fact that came in, so many things. It's a network of there's so many things, matrix of so many things. I don't know if I'm using the word matrix right. That's a mathematical term. I got to be careful. So a lot of things connect to make everything happen, causes and conditions. That's all. The rice is put on sale. The trucks bring it. The clerks in the store ring it up. And if you're in a restaurant, the kitchen staff is working, etc. Who made the machines for the kitchen staff? We can go on and on. He gets a little conversational now on page 97. In McLeod Ganj, where His Holiness the Dalai Lama lives, or some people call it the Ramsala, there are a considerable number of restaurants catering largely to Westerners and other visitors who come on pilgrimage to study or just as tourists. As the number of visitors has increased, so have hotels and restaurant facilities expanded. Clearly, the visitors depend on the restaurants and hotels, and equally, the hotel and restaurant workers depend on the visitors. We have to think these things to train our mind constantly to see connection, because that's what is. As the range of facilities for visitors improves, so are more people tempted to come, and as the number of visitors increases, so do more people take to the business of selling them food, souvenirs, handicrafts, and books on Buddhism. Many of the Tibetan shop and hotel owners would say that this situation ultimately rests on the kindness of His Holiness and the Three Jewels. They are very happy to see the visitors from other parts of India and the rest of the world who come to McLeod Ganj, happy on their own account, and also when they think of the benefit visitors can derive from finding out about Buddhism, not just for the money they bring. These are religious people who think they're getting the inclination of Buddhism and having a good time at the same time, thinking connectively all the time. The visitors are pleased that the facility in McLeod Ganj are not so bad and that they can get decent food there. They can appreciate the welcome they get and the cheerfulness of the Tibetans, and they too can understand that there is mutual benefit for themselves and the Tibetans in their being there, if your eyes are open. But if either side were to lapse into a more self-centered way of thinking, such as, I'm the one who built up this restaurant by my hard work, or I can eat at this expensive restaurant because I worked hard and saved a lot of money. I. Yes, but you'll be in a place where there's no good food to eat. It's dull, like Albany at night or something. All the money in the world is going to give you a good time. There's dependency. There has to be, So, yeah, Albany. We used to say Albany is the place where dying is redundant. So, then thinking that their fortunate situation did not depend on others, only on themselves. I worked off of this. There would be a degeneration of this happy feeling between the two sides and the mutual tolerance of each other's foibles. So this is important. Greater happiness comes when you see the connection of things, people, and everything. You decrease your own happiness into a cheap thrill when you just, I did this, I did that. It's not reality. That's why. Another example of the benefits of remembering a dependent rising occurs in the following story. And it's a story we've all heard before. This fellow was leading his yak through the mountain pass. Everything is yaks in Tibetan in those days. And the yak slipped and fell between a crack, and he was trying to get it out. And it was unable to rise again. So the man made a strong prayer to the Buddhas and to Padmasambhava in particular. And by heaving on the rope that he had, he was able to get the yak back on its feet. But instead of thinking about the kindness of the Buddhas or the Three Jewels, he set off again on his journey with a very inflated view of his own strength. Oh, I did it. Forgot that he said a prayer. A little further on, the yak fell down again. This time the man thought he could get the yak back to its feet by tugging on the rope without bothering with the prayer. But try as he might, the yak remained stuck and could not shift it. He could not shift it an inch. Moral of this story is, whatever we undertake, if we remember that our success depends on far more than just our own prowess or wealth, we will only be more in touch with the reality of the situation, since the dependent relationships of one phenomena with others are in fact countless, uncountable. Yeah. That's why you'll see Tibetans, before they start a project, say some prayers, give charity, develop the merit to enhance ensure the success, or make odds better for the success of the project. More in touch with reality then. Being more in touch with reality, as he says now, of our situation can only help us in getting on better with other people, for instance. As for the power of prayers, Padmasambhava was one of the first and greatest yogis to spread Buddhist teachings in Tibet, and a prayer backed up by strong faith in him can help good karma to ripen at a certain point to bring about a desired result. You have these good deeds. You want to wake them up and get the result of them right away. Prayer can help that. Just as a child's willingness to learn makes it possible for the teacher to draw out the child's understanding, so, as in the story, making a prayer can help to draw out our ability to solve a particular problem at a critical time. The second aspect, remember, of dependent rising, relying. So we had depending and now relying, does not exclude the relationship between effects and causes, as we have discussed under the heading of being dependent, but also stressed in an explanation is an explanation of relying on the mutual relationships between parts and wholes, another type of dependency. Now, this takes it into the internal workings of the mind. And we don't realize this. I'll let him say it. We cannot have an appreciation of a table unless we apprehend some of the parts of the table. And we cannot understand what a part of a table is, such as a table leg or the color of a table, without understanding a table, the whole. Somehow we've made that connection. Oh, there's a table. Well, we see parts, we do this, we put them together instantly. If we are standing outside at night and we see a pair of lights flickering in the distance, and then we hear the sound of a roar of a motor, we think there is a car coming. Simultaneous with the apprehension of a car, simultaneous now, is the understanding that the lights are the lights of a car and that the engine noise is the noise of a car. This is how our mind is working. A car and the parts of a car, in this instance, its lights and its sound, rely upon each other. Neither is apprehended without the car. We do this. Another dimension of the concept of relying is the way in which pairs of things like self and other, short and tall, here and there, and subject and object are mutually reliant. The only way self, for instance, can be distinguished is by contrasting it with other. If everyone were exactly the same size, there would be no perception of small or tall people. You don't think about this, but we have to start thinking about this, take apart our normal way of perception and get in sync with reality. To get a grasp of what a tall person is, we must have some notion of what a person who is not tall is like. Furthermore, a Western man who comes to McLeod Ganj may find that the Tibetans who see him think of him as tall or big on the basis that he is somewhat taller and more heavily built than most Tibetans. Back in his own country, however, he may be no more than an average-sized person who nobody thinks of as tall. It is only in reliance upon the appearance of other phenomena and in the comparison with them that any particular object can be designated as big or small, beautiful or ugly, good or bad, and so forth. If we are asked, is this big? Strictly speaking, we cannot reply big in relation to what. We don't do that. Some people do, to be wise. Some of the philosophy students you'll get doing. Big in terms of what? Shut up. No, but we pick this up immediately, that often the kind of perception we have of an object relies very much on past experiences. Now he's unlocking this. Take momos, for instance. I'll take two. Tibetans are very fond of these steamed dumplings, especially when they are filled with meat. On the other hand, vegetarians or somebody who ate momos before and got very sick would perhaps find them most unpleasant to eat. In themselves, are momos pleasant, tasting, unpleasant, or neither? No general answer can be given, only an answer from a particular point of view, in reliance upon a comparison with other tastes and flavors. You can hold that in your mind for a second. No general answer can be given, only an answer from a particular point of view, in reliance upon a comparison with other tastes and flavors. Meeting, the third thing we're talking about, aspect of dependent arising, explained by the consequentialist, stresses the way in which a multitude of different factors come together in any act of cognition. For any object to be cognized, there has to be the meeting of the object with the consciousness apprehending it. More specifically, it is the parts of the object assembled together which cast their aspect to the mind and produce an apprehension of the object. That's hard to understand. I'll say it again so you can think about it. More specifically, it is the parts of an object assembled together which cast their aspect to the mind and produce an apprehension of the object. Any entity we grasp, and you're going to look around your room now and see, pick up anything. Any entity we grasp as having a single identity, in fact, results from many different aspects meeting or coming together to form it. As an example, take a product such as a knife. It comes about through the meeting of its causes, some iron for the blade and a piece of wood for the handle. The craftsmen involved, or craftswomen involved, in the heat of the forge, the hammer and the cutting, grinding, polishing tools, a lot of things. Then there's the coming together of the parts, the blade, the haft and the rivets or glue which hold them to fasten them together. Finally, the collection of parts meets with a consciousness which knows what the distinguishing characteristics of a knife are, meets with a consciousness. Getting to the idea of now how things are designated. Meets with a consciousness which knows what the distinguishing characteristics of a knife are, and that consciousness interprets the assemblage of parts as a knife with lightning speed. But that's what's going on. Page 102. What time do we have? We'll have to continue with this because it's critical. This is very critical. Contemplating dependent arising under the three headings of dependent arising, relying, and meeting will enrich our understanding and put at our fingertips many ways of reasoning against our ingrained grasping at inherent existence. He's going to the things that create our grasping at inherent existence, and he's pulling them apart and showing you, look, this is what's going on. Explode that and try to see unity, try to see constant flow. When we recollect how thoroughly dependent on our own existence, how thoroughly dependent our own existence is on the labor of the multitude of other, we will not help. It will not that help to reduce our self-satisfied pride. Think about it. The train you took or whatever, all this, the house you live in. When we consider that the people who are the object of our anger are not a worthy object of anger from their own side, but are merely grasped at such by our own rampaging mind, will that not rob our anger of the fuel that feeds it? So this anger that comes about of us, sometimes, it's justified. They did this and this. Yes, yes, yes. But you didn't take into consideration the factor of your karmic propensity to have met this person because you created some karmic problem with that person in the past. You didn't do that. This wouldn't be happening now. Shantideva points that out. All these little things. Am I really viewing that person's behavior properly, or am I just not understanding it and think it's aggressive towards me? A lot goes into these moments of anger, and you take the fuel of the anger away. So if you have an anger problem, which if you do have a problem, and we all have, triggers immediately, this is how you break that down. So you're not swept along by the habits of your mind. Practically speaking, long before we are able to convince ourselves with watertight logical proof that all phenomena are utterly devoid of existence by their own power, we can use our limited understanding of dependent arising to catch our negative emotions before they boil up and become really poisonous. That's what he's talking about here. Right away, this information is helpful. Once we are in the throes of a fit of jealousy or rage, our mind is generally too turbulent to steer onto a different course. But by analyzing what went wrong afterwards and recollecting frequently the various facets of dependent arising, we can gradually reduce the frequency and intensity of our negative emotions. This is the key to understanding emptiness. And you're working with what you have right inside you. Other benefits of remembering dependent arising were spoken of by Buddha as three. Firstly, remembering dependent arisings will keep us from falling to either of the two extremes, the extremes of permanence or the extreme of nihilism. When we recollect that all things are interdependent, we will not grasp at ourselves and other phenomena as being inherently existent. Yes, we are interdependent. We are interdependent. By focusing on how all things are dependently related, we will realize that they can only be related in the first place by virtue of the fact that they exist. The first recognition will prevent us from falling to the extreme of permanence, and the second will prevent us from falling to the extreme of nihilism. Okay. Secondly, understanding dependent arising will enable us to recognize correctly how phenomena exist only nominally through the conventions of terminology. Hard to understand that, but hear him out. The third benefit is that we will be able to understand clearly how phenomena are like a magician's illusion or reflections in water. Up until the verses quoted at the beginning of this chapter, the explanation of dependent arising has been directed towards realizing the emptiness of inherent existence, the inherent existence of phenomena. What the verses at the beginning of the second section reveals that understanding emptiness thoroughly leads one to a still better understanding of dependent arising. The most profound aspects of dependent arising, it is said, do not become clear until after one has realized emptiness. So this is tough. This is wordy, etc. It's a derivative of the Lam section that we're on now, but it's not. It demands some attention from you, and just watch how you assume certain things about a person, get angry or get attached, and then check weeks later. Oh, I was wrong. Bring that back up, so that when you start seeing people, you just have a more open mind, and you're not triggering your usual ideas of that person, your usual prejudices, or situations or whatever. But you'll get the idea. We will come to Tsongkhapa's description of phenomena as being like illusion in a later verse. That's a big one. But the question of what this nominal existence is that is left after we have proved that phenomena do not exist by way of their own entities or characteristics is a pertinent one and is a point of which the consequentialist part accompany with the other Buddhist schools. Yeah, what is this? Everything is nominally existent. It's designated by thought. Yeah, that sounds nice, but what does that really mean? If I think of something that happens, it becomes that. Let's see what he says. The other school's position is that if one rejects inherent existence, which is tantamount to rejecting existence as such, it's terrible. You reject inherent existence, you rejected all of it. Everything is inherently existent, according to most of the schools of Buddhism. And Buddha has taught that because that's what people's minds naturally go to. That's how they're operating. So he goes right to where their mindset is, gives them this, gives them that, and is building them up to accept the fact that a lot of that's wrong. But if he came right out and said it, they'd reject him out of hand. Yeah, the earth is flat, he said. Yeah, there is a self. Oh, yeah, who said there's no self? But he's giving them other teachings at the same time, then talks them into the higher view. So, and this is happening to us now. So, without inherent existence, nothing would exist, these schools say, or else any appearance to mind would have to be accepted as valid. So there's no inherent existence. So anything you see is valid. Any illusion, anything, that's it. You have to have inherent existence, they say. The consequentialists reply that just because what exists is merely imputed, it doesn't follow that whatever is imputed exists. Aha. What exists is merely imputed, but doesn't follow that whatever is imputed exists. Specifically, you'll give an example. A man who sees a rabbit in the distance with its ears sticking up might think that he is seeing a rabbit with horns. This does not mean that a horned rabbit exists. When the man thinks that rabbit has got horns, the basis of designation, an ordinary rabbit, and then the object designated a rabbit having horns, do not have the compatibility necessary for the imputation to stick. You just can't impute anything. They always go with hairs on a turtle, whatever. So it has to have compatibility or congruency for the imputation to stick. So it's not that anything you think is created, that's it, I created. That's a wrong jump in logic. As we discussed earlier in our example of the rope and a snake, right? There's nothing that makes it a snake, it's just a rope. But when you impute falsely, you actually react, oh no, oh no, it's not a snake, or not this, or not that. By abandoning the idea of there being a solid core existing from the object's own side on which the object can be designated, we can follow the consequentialist inspiration. Abandon that idea, by the way. We follow the consequentialist inspiration and experiment with the experience of all things as empty or selfless. But unless we have a second way to posit the things of the world, such as cows, trees, chairs, and rabbits, we will only have succeeded in plunging into the abyss of nihilism. You have to be careful. So how do you posit things that exist after you say, well, that's an illusion, it doesn't exist that way, it doesn't exist that way? Oh, there's nothing there. No. Two lines of thought which are exclusively consequentialist can be set forth to indicate ways in which the existence of the phenomena of the world can be upheld after inherent existence has been repudiated. So you got rid of inherent existence. Yeah, what's there now? The first concerns mutual reliance of parts and whole. The second concerns accepting things as merely nominally existent, depending on terms or designates. If we think about, I'm going to just I'll probably run this through to the end, or we could stop here and go to Sankapa. We'll stop here and go to Sankapa, people, and we'll take this up next class, which will be Tuesday next week. Jackie has departed, will be departing tomorrow for India. I want to thank her very much for the class she gave, for the warmth she spread when she appeared at the center or in class. I hope she has a good time in India. She's got a lot of good teachers behind her, and she progresses and helps all of us. She's a very nice person. I know her a long time. For a while, she had slipped out of view. I know her over 30 years. So. Very bright, brilliant person. Thank you very much, Jackie. If you're watching, if you're not, well, good for you. Pardon me. Quick look into the chapter from the third volume of Lamrim Chembo. Production is not disputed. Chapter 15. 15, Darren. Okay. There's a voice coming from somewhere. Ay. Just do a quick quote, and then we'll go to Geshe Sopa. In the questions of, this is page 188, he's quoting, Sankhapa's quoting the question of the Naga King Anavapta Sutra, or the Anavapta Naga Raja Parapricha Sutra. Question is Parapricha, so we got that. Page 188, volume 3. Whatever is produced from conditions is not produced. What? This is Buddha's own words. Whatever is produced from conditions is not produced. It is not intrinsically produced. Whatever depends on conditions, I consider empty. One who knows emptiness is diligent. So that's his praise. After the Buddha had stated the first line, whatever is produced from conditions is not produced, he indicates with the second line the manner of non-production. He says it's not intrinsically produced, thus adding a qualifying phrase to the object of negation. Not produced, but it's not intrinsically produced. Don't take it to mean not totally produced. Like the no in the heart sutra, no nose, no ear, whatever. Same thing, a qualified no. The Buddha says that things are not produced intrinsically. Some hear these words and do not understand them, and then they say, only produce is not produced, only the dependent does not depend. What? They evidently think that aggressively advocating this massive contradictions constitutes an advanced view. Sankapa could be a little cutting when he wants to. This is also stated very clearly in the descent into Lanka Sutra, the Lankavatara Sutra, as quoted by Chandrakirti in his clear words. And Buddha said, Mahamadi, yeah, you're talking to me? No. Mahamadi, thinking that they are not produced intrinsically, I said that all phenomena are not produced. Again, the qualified not. Heart Sutra, no ear, no eye, no head, no inherent ear. No. So that has to be always brought up in our minds. So we don't slip there. There's nothing I can do. Look who thinks there's nothing. This actually answers the question whether the qualification ultimately should be attached to the refutation of production and so forth. However, I will answer this question more specifically below. That's one of the points of the Svatantrika school. You should use ultimate or not. These points explained above, I'm still on page 188, indicate that none of the refutations set forth by opponents can refute the procedure for positing things such as cause and effect in the absence of intrinsic existence. In general, the height of false refutation is an argument that obliterates the analysis that was supposed to refute the opponent, leaving no trace. Thus, your statement is the height of false refutation. This is because the method you use to refute your opponent's position, analyzing whether reason contradicts it, and so forth, can be turned against you and used to refute your critique. They're arguing. I hate that. Qualm, you, the other schools are saying, you assert the existence of forms and such, so the analysis of them in terms of the four alternatives does not bear upon your position. We, however, have no position of our own, so such analysis does not apply to us. And he replies, this argument cannot avoid these fallacies. I will explain this later in this section on whether the view is established through reductio ad absurdum arguments or through autonomous syllogism. And that's the big thing. You use consequences of the opponent's own argument to show the falsity of their reasoning. You said this, you said that. That follows that this is happening. That's absurd. Or do you use a regular autonomous syllogism? I won't go into that now because it's going to be explained later. So a refutation of all parts of the tetralemma, not from self, we'll let him explain. That is not a legitimate critique of conventional phenomena. That's the heading of this particular section. And we have about 5 minutes to do this. The question is, Madhyamaka texts refute all parts of the tetralemma. A thing or intrinsic nature exists, doesn't exist, both exist and does not exist, neither exists nor does not exist. So it either is or isn't, both is and isn't, neither is or isn't. That's reason refutes everything, as there are no phenomena that are not included among these four. As indicated earlier, thing has two meanings. Sounds like Clinton's argument years ago. What is? Anyway, thing has two meanings. Between these two, we refute the assertion that things essentially exist in terms of both truth, conventional and ultimate. There's no essential or inherent existence in both realms, conventional. We say this all the time. No such thing as inherent existence. It's a mental imagination. It's an imagination. All imagination is mental. I'm all right, doctor. Between the two, we refute the assertion that things essentially exist in terms of both truths. However, at the conventional level, we do not refute things that can perform functions. They perform functions. We're not saying they're not there. They're there, but they're not inherently existent because you didn't examine the meaning of inherent existence. That's the big problem. If you really followed the consequences of holding that idea of inherent existence, you'd hit the wall. And that's what these arguments are showing. They can perform functions. It's for non-things. If you hold that non-compounded phenomena are essentially existent non-things, then we also refute such non-things, because anything tainted by essential existence isn't real. We likewise refute something that is both such a thing and a non-thing. And we also refute something that essentially exists as neither. Throw in essential everything that's thrown out by us. That being us being the consequentialist, not me, because I don't have that high of a level of understanding, but Tsongkhapa's position. Thus, you should understand that all methods of refuting the tetralemma are like this, involving some qualifier such as essentially. So we're not saying things don't exist. We're saying they don't inherently exist. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. On and on. We hear this. You have to understand the terms, though, and they don't take even more, have a more resonance with you. Suppose that you refute the tetralemma without affixing any such qualification. You go along with the words as written. You refute the position that things exist, and you refute the position that they don't exist. You then say, it is not the case that they both exist and do not exist. If you now continue with the refutation saying, it is also not the case that they are neither existent nor non-existent, then you explicitly contradict your own position. If you then stubbornly exist, even so, there is no fallacy, then the debate is over, because we do not debate with the obstinate. We're not wasting our time. Go back to school, son. Furthermore, when you refute essential intrinsic nature or self with regards to the aggregates, this gives rise to a wisdom consciousness thinking intrinsic nature or self does not exist. That's wisdom. If you also refute the lack of intrinsic natures, that is the object of that wisdom consciousness, then you are refuting the Madhyamaka view. No. This is because you have refuted the object of the wisdom consciousness that knows that phenomena lack intrinsic nature. You're just going crazy refuting everything without thinking. People do this, but they don't realize what they're doing. Because if someone takes them and slowly shows them, no, you can't do that because this. Oh, you're right. So that's what these books are trying to tell us. The language is different. Method of instruction is a little different. Debate, dialectic back and forth, we're not used to that too much. At least I'm not. I'm, I'm ancient. Anyway, this is what I ask of those who, Tsongkhapa says, this is what I ask of those who claim to refute both intrinsic nature and the absence of intrinsic nature. You can't do that, first of all. Please tell me how you refute the absence of intrinsic nature that is the object of the wisdom consciousness, ascertaining that the aggregates do not intrinsically exist. How do you do that? How do you come to this wisdom insight and then refute that? Well, the guy answers, well, Nagarjuna said if there were the slightest trace which is non-empty, then a trace of emptiness would exist as well. As there is no trace that is non-empty, how could there be a trace of emptiness? Therefore, there is nothing that is not empty. The emptiness of the absence of intrinsic existence also does not exist. Here, the fundamental treatise, empty and non-empty, referred to being, this is the reply, empty and non-empty of intrinsic nature, and they are used in this way throughout the entire text from beginning to end. Thus, not empty of intrinsic nature means having intrinsic nature. What could be more ridiculous than your position that since there is no intrinsic nature, the emptiness that is the absence of intrinsic nature also does not exist? And we'll repeat that next week when we come back to class, because that'll gel a lot of meanings in your mind. Seems to help. Anyway, we are almost out of all time, yes. Do we have names? We have Chuki Wangdu,
Chuki Shakapa Wangdu.
Chuki Shakapa Wangdu. Oh, Shakapa, she's Shakapa's
Yes,
daughter. That's right, I
Yes.
forgot. This old Tibetan talking here.
the historian.
The historian, Shakapa. He gave a lecture, series of lectures at Tibetan back in the 70s. I wasn't there. I came a little bit after. I came in 77. He's still. Who else, Darren? Anybody else?
No, no other names.
No other names. So there are ample people to pray for in the world who are suffering. African continent, European continent, Asian continent, wherever. And passed away, without having the opportunity, a lot of them, to meet the Buddha Dharma. That's the biggest tragedy. To be around when the Buddha's teachings are alive and not hear them. Very sad, even just a little bit. So that's what our Buddhist centers are all about, all the Buddhist centers, at least getting the word out so that it's picked up by a consciousness and will ripen maybe in later lives. And then suffering will really end. So, recollection of the three jewels. I prostrate to the omniscient one. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavad, Tathagata, Arahat, Samyak Sang Buddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strengths cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He's not stained by the realm of desire. He's not stained by the realm of form. He's not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The Holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavad teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavad, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Song of the Great Jnana, they enter completely. They enter insightfully. They enter straightforwardly. They enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion. Virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. So the next event here will be Saturday afternoon. The White Terrace Sadhana presentation is online also at 1 o'clock. You're all welcome to come here to the parsonage in South Orange, New Jersey. On our website are the instructions on how to get here. And the next Dharma class will be next Tuesday night, which will be the 27th in New York City. And then there'll be a class after that on the 28th here in our old parsonage. I haven't heard anything lately about Lori Rankin. So, Jeff, if you're listening, could you just text me and let me know how she's doing? I understand you had a little bit of a problem, so we continue to pray for her, of course. And again, I want to thank Jackie very much for the hard work she did when she was here. I wish her well in her studies and her practice. I wish her the best. So, thank you for your patient listening. Big love to all of you.